Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back, and it's not a fancy video today, but I had to jump on and I have to inform you about something that's very serious that's happening in the Ministry of Education. Over a year ago, I notified the Ministry of Education about how schools fund activist medical organizations to come into the school and actually inform kids and put them on a path to obtain a medical transition, essentially. And I've talked about like the different policies that the schools have in place to socially begin the transition of kids in schools. And now these organizations are also coming in and they're giving kids information on how they can get therapy, how they can get drugs, and how they can get access to literally medical intervention where they cut off genitals, and that will obviously lead to sterilization. Honestly, it's a huge abuse concern that I have. Pretty much everybody in the world has recognized that child transition is abusive, but the ministry is continuing to allow this to happen. Now, initially, when I sent that video, they did some research on me and they've noticed that I've been very vocal at the school boards, and they've right off the bat labeled me transphobic and hateful. And what's funny about that is they linked the articles. And the first time I spoke, actually, I was just speaking out of concern on who's interested in knowing the sexuality of my daughters. They're very young. They still are young, but one of them was like 7 years old at the time, you know. So I didn't even say anything about child transition. I just wanted to know who's interested, you know. But anyways, they labeled me as transphobic internally as well. And they're looking for ways to dismiss me, including taking legal action, sending me a cease and desist letter. They're looking at their different options. And every time I talk to the Ministry of Education, it's basically like pulling teeth. They will not reply. And I had to force reply with the ombudsman. And an acceptable reply is, we choose not to reply. So basically, they'll do everything possible to avoid taking accountability or making change, taking concerns seriously. They would rather close a file than deal with actual concerns. And, you know, in these internal emails that they've been doing on how to deal with me, you can definitely see the contempt that the Ministry of Education has for parents. And it's pretty crazy with the stuff that are happening. And there's an article that Melanie Bennett wrote for Juno News about this. The FOI took a really long time to get. Honestly, this has been going on for more than a year. And initially, they didn't want to take my concern seriously because they said, you know, we can't investigate the videos and stuff that public members send in. You know, honestly, they can investigate the videos. I'm sure that if somebody sent them a video about physical abuse happening, I'm sure they would be investigating that. But because they couldn't investigate the video, I just formatted the video and I wrote them an email detailing everything, you know. And they give me a long-winded reply, never addressing my concerns, but something along the lines of, we ensure that we are working with the human rights in mind and we are following these laws and stuff, but they'll never answer any of the question about how much funding is going to the schools for these inclusive programs. And inclusive means access to medical organizations, because they think that's inclusive as well. And it's just crazy to see the leadership just completely sidestep all of this. Now, you've probably heard my testimony. If you haven't, it's on my YouTube. Just type in Father David Todor or go on my YouTube channel, Beyond the Rift, and you will see my testimony at the National Citizens Inquiry, where I do detail the school to medical pathways and the things that happen in school. But it's so insane to see that the Ministry of Education is literally complicit. They're not dumb. They know exactly what's happening. They know exactly what's going on. You can't chalk it up to these people have no idea, because they're smart and they are doing this on purpose. And we have to hold the Ministry of Education accountable. We're sending our kids to school so they can receive an education. And instead of them focusing on academics, They focus on social emotional learning and basically activism. That's their goal. And yeah, it's a shame, but even the Ministry of Education, like the minister himself, Paul Calandra, is always going on about how like there needs to be change and we're taking over the schools. If you've ever talked to anybody in the Ministry of Education, you know that it's basically impossible to like talk to anybody. Try calling them, try talking to anybody, try sending them an email. You'll be waiting months and months and months, hoping that you'll receive a reply, and they hope that you're gonna stop inquiring if they ignore you long enough. So they'll do everything possible. So, you know, Paul Calandra, he just wants to take the trustees away. But once you do that, there's no way to hold the Ministry of Education responsible. There's no way to hold them responsible now. You know, just imagine if you can't even talk to anybody. You never know who you're talking to at the Ministry of Education. There's one time out of my conversations that one of the higher up identified herself because I said, like, what emails are these? Like, you guys are just like, are you guys using AI when you're replying to me? And it was a person named Susan Gordon, and basically telling me like, no, we're not using AI and we addressed all your concerns in the email and there's nothing else we can respond. And you know, they need an entire team of people, so they can word their emails carefully, because you know, instead of saying, hey, yeah, you're right, maybe we should look into this, or can you give us more information, or we appreciate the heads up. Instead of that, they're working around the clock with the entire team, thinking about how they can silence parents. And I think this is a very serious issue. Honestly, like, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, but it's now become like worldwide phenomenon. You know, it's no longer a problem talking about this, but this is child abuse, and the Ministry of Education needs to be held responsible for this, for pushing this, for funding this, for enabling this. They're not stupid. They know exactly what's happening. And honestly, I do believe in safe spaces, and the safe spaces that these people belong to are called jail cells. That's exactly where they belong if they promote child abuse in schools and are okay and complicit at best, with medically transitioning kids. Anyways, read that article by Melanie Bennett. And yeah, it's so crazy to see that the Ministry of Education behaves in this way. They don't care about parents. They think they know more than everybody. That pride is really settling in. And yeah, unfortunately, when you're too proud, you can't admit that you're wrong. And the only thing that you can do is just stick to your ideology. But that ship is sinking, thankfully. So keep the pressure up with the Ministry of Education. And in my opinion, if we can't reform them, they seriously need to be abolished. And we need to have a system that we can maybe put our taxes to better use. And if you don't want to send your kid to a public school and you want to send them to a private school, well, at least your taxes can go that way. I don't know. But basically, right, Paul Calandra, in my opinion, he needs to resign, and anybody else that's doing this, at the minimum, needs to be resigned, if not jailed. Thanks again for your time.